Thank you for listening to the Sleepy Mind channel. Strawberries form their seeds on the outside of the fruit, with each tiny dot developing separately as the soft red body expands beneath them. This unusual structure shapes everything about how strawberries grow, how they ripen, and how they respond to light, water, and temperature over a short growing season. And if you like stories like these, please like and subscribe. Strawberries are the only common fruit with seeds on the outside. The small dots scattered across the surface are called achenes. Each achene is technically its own fruit, and each one contains a single seed. A single strawberry can carry more than 200 achenes, each responding individually to pollination and growth conditions as the berry forms. Let's begin. The red flesh beneath the achenes is not the fruit itself. It is a swollen stem that enlarges as the achenes develop. As the strawberry plant grows, sugars produced in the leaves move into this stem tissue, causing it to expand, soften, and change color. The true fruits are the achenes on the surface, while the red body serves as the structure that supports them. Strawberries belong to the rose family. This also includes roses, apples, and almonds. This connection becomes clearer when looking at how strawberries flower and set seed. Despite their low growth and delicate texture, strawberries share similar reproductive structures with their relatives, including flower shape and seed formation. Strawberry plants are perennials. The same plant can live and produce fruit for several years when conditions are suitable. They grow low to the ground, with leaves, flowers, and runners emerging from a central structure called the crown. The crown sits at the soil surface and acts as the main growing point of the plant. New leaves and flowers form here. This means damage to the crown can stop growth entirely. Strawberries originated in the Americas, where wild strawberries were eaten long before cultivation began. These early forms were small and varied in size and flavor. The large strawberries commonly eaten today did not exist before the 18th century. They were developed through hybridization, crossing North American and South American species to combine fruit size, flavor, and adaptability to different growing conditions. Strawberry plants produce white flowers with yellow centers. Each flower has the potential to become one strawberry. Pollination directly affects the shape of the fruit. When pollination is incomplete, some achenes fail to develop, and the surrounding stem tissue expands unevenly. This uneven expansion produces berries that are misshapen or asymmetrical. Bees are the primary pollinators of strawberries. As bees move across the flower, pollen is transferred between reproductive structures. Each successfully pollinated achene signals nearby stem tissue to expand. When many achenes are pollinated evenly, the strawberry develops a fuller, more balanced shape. Strawberries prefer full sun. Sun exposure increases sweetness and deepens color because sugars are produced in the leaves and transported into the developing fruit. Strawberries also grow best in well-drained soil. Their root systems are shallow and sensitive to excess moisture. When soil remains soggy, water fills air spaces in the soil and reduces oxygen availability around the roots. Consistent watering is especially important during fruit development. As strawberries expand, their soft tissue holds a large amount of water. If water supply fluctuates, growth becomes uneven. Too much water near harvest can dilute flavor, while drought limits cell expansion and reduces fruit size. Strawberries grow best in cooler temperatures. Extreme heat can reduce fruit quality by stressing the plant and limiting sugar accumulation. Temperature also influences flowering patterns, especially in everbearing and day-neutral varieties. This respond more strongly to temperature than to day length. Strawberry plants spread by runners. Runners are horizontal stems that extend outward from the parent plant and produce new plants at their tips. This allows strawberries to colonize ground quickly. Gardeners often remove runners to direct energy toward fruit production. When left alone, runners can form dense patches. Strawberries typically produce fruit in late spring or early summer. Some varieties are ever-bearing and produce fruit multiple times each year. Day-neutral varieties can continue fruiting as long as temperatures remain favorable. Once strawberries begin turning red, they ripen quickly. Strawberries do not continue to ripen after harvest. Fully red berries are the sweetest, while white or green areas indicate under-ripeness. Because the flesh is soft, strawberries bruise easily. Gentle handling helps preserve texture and flavor. Strawberries have a short shelf life. Refrigeration slows spoilage, but aroma compounds begin to fade soon after harvest. Washing strawberries too early introduces moisture that accelerates decay. For best quality, washing is done just before use. Strawberries are rich in vitamin C and antioxidants. These compounds help protect the plant from environmental stress and also contribute to flavor and color. The same compounds influence aroma, linking plant defense with sensory qualities. Soil quality strongly influences taste. Healthier soil supports steady nutrient uptake. This allows sugars and acids to balance properly in the fruit. Organic matter improves soil structure and moisture balance, supporting consistent growth. Commercial growers often treat strawberries as annual crops to increase yield and reduce disease pressure. Home gardeners may keep plants for several seasons, though older plants often produce smaller berries. Renewing plants helps maintain productivity. Strawberries are susceptible to fungal diseases. Good air circulation allows leaves and fruit to dry, reducing disease risk. Mulching keeps fruit clean and dry. Straw is often used as mulch, giving strawberries their name. Strawberries attract birds and small animals. Netting is commonly used to protect crops. In cold winters, strawberry plants enter dormancy. Dormancy protects the crown from freezing damage. When spring returns, new leaves emerge from the crown and growth begins again. Strawberries begin their growing cycle with flowers that sit low to the ground, held just above the leaves on short stems. These flowers appear after the plant has produced enough leaf growth to support reproduction. Each flower forms at the crown of the plant, emerging from the same central structure that produces leaves and runners. Strawberry flowers are white, with 5 petals surrounding a yellow center. The yellow area contains many tiny reproductive structures packed closely together. Each one corresponds to a future achene. The flower does not produce a single seed in the center. Instead, it produces many potential seeds spread across the surface area of the flower's center. Pollination is essential for proper strawberry development. When pollen reaches these reproductive structures, fertilization begins at multiple points rather than one. Each fertilized structure sends a signal that influences how the surrounding stem tissue will grow. This is why pollination affects the final shape of the strawberry so clearly. Bees are the primary pollinators of strawberries. As bees move across the flower collecting pollen, their bodies brush against many of the reproductive structures at once. This movement distributes pollen across the surface of the flower rather than concentrating it in one place. Even coverage leads to even development. When pollination is incomplete, some areas of the flower do not receive pollen. The achenes in those areas fail to develop properly. Without those signals, the nearby stem tissue expands less. The result is a strawberry that grows unevenly, often with flattened or indented sections. The shape of a strawberry is therefore a direct record of its pollination history. A well-pollinated flower produces a full, symmetrical berry. Poor pollination leaves visible gaps where growth slowed or stopped. Temperature, insect activity, and weather during flowering all influence this process. Strawberry flowers open over a short window. This timing matters because pollination must occur while the flower is receptive. Cold temperatures can slow insect movement. Rain can wash pollen away or keep pollinators from flying. When conditions are poor during this brief period, fruit development is affected, even if the plant is otherwise healthy. Once pollination succeeds, the flower begins to change quickly. Petals drop away. and the center of the flower starts to enlarge. The fertilized achenes release growth signals that cause the stem tissue beneath them to swell. This swelling happens unevenly at first, then becomes more uniform as development continues. Strawberries ripen quickly once this process begins. The green fruit enlarges as cells divide and expand. Water moves into the developing tissue, increasing size and softness. At the same time, sugars produced in the leaves are transported into the fruit, supporting sweetness and color development. Temperature plays a strong role during this stage. Cooler conditions support steady growth and balanced flavor. Excessive heat stresses the plant, limiting sugar accumulation and shortening development time. This often leads to berries that are lighter in flavor and softer in texture. Strawberries do not continue to ripen after harvest. The sugars and aroma compounds present at the time of picking remain fixed. This makes timing critical. Fully red strawberries are the sweetest because sugar transport and color development have reached their peak. White or green areas on a strawberry indicate underripeness. These sections formed later or developed more slowly, often due to uneven pollination or temperature stress. Once picked, these areas do not improve in flavor. Because strawberry flesh is soft, the fruit bruises easily. Pressure damages cell walls, releasing moisture and accelerating decay. Gentle handling preserves structure and slows spoilage. This is why strawberries are often picked by hand and handled carefully during harvest. Strawberries have a short shelf life. After harvest, respiration continues, using stored sugars and releasing moisture. Refrigeration slows this process by reducing metabolic activity, but it does not stop it entirely. Aroma compounds are especially fragile and begin to dissipate soon after harvest. Washing strawberries too early introduces surface moisture. This moisture supports microbial growth and speeds decay. For this reason, strawberries are best washed just before use rather than immediately after picking. The flavor of strawberries is shaped by a balance of sugars and acids. Natural sugars provide sweetness, while acidity creates brightness. This balance develops during growth and is influenced by soil quality, water availability, and temperature. Healthy soil supports steady nutrient uptake. This allows flavor compounds to form evenly. Poor soil conditions interrupt this process, leading to berries that may look ripe but lack depth of flavor. Organic matter improves soil structure, helping roots absorb water and nutrients consistently. Strawberry plants have shallow root systems. Because the roots sit close to the soil surface, they adjust rapidly to changes in moisture. Consistent watering is important during flowering and fruit development. Drought limits cell expansion, producing smaller berries. Overwatering has a different effect. Excess water near harvest increases fruit size without a matching increase in sugars, diluting flavor. This is why heavy rain just before harvest often produces watery berries. Strawberries grow best in full sun. Sun exposure increases sweetness and color because leaves exposed to light produce more sugars. Shaded plants may survive, but produce less flavorful fruit. Strawberries typically produce fruit in late spring or early summer. Some varieties are ever-bearing and produce multiple harvests each year. Day-neutral varieties continue fruiting as long as temperatures remain suitable. In these types, temperature has a stronger influence on flowering than day length. Once fruiting ends, the plant redirects energy. Leaves continue photosynthesis, and sugars are stored in the crown. This stored energy supports future growth, runner production, or dormancy, depending on the season. Strawberries are often described as delicate, but their productivity comes from rapid growth rather than long-term structure. The plant invests energy into quick reproduction, producing many fruits over a short period. Each strawberry reflects weeks of growth, shaped by weather, soil, water, and pollination. The final fruit carries visible evidence of those conditions in its shape, color, and flavor. This stage of development sets the tone for the rest of the growing season. The success of flowering and early fruit growth influences how the plant allocates energy moving forward, whether toward additional fruit, runner production, or preparation for dormancy. Strawberry plants grow low to the ground, spreading outward rather than upward. This growth habit shapes how they use water, nutrients, and space, and it influences how strawberries are cultivated in both gardens and farms. Much of the plant's behavior is determined by the way its roots and stems develop close to the soil surface. The strawberry plant's root system is shallow. Most roots occupy the upper layers of soil, where moisture levels change quickly in response to rain, irrigation, and temperature. Because the roots do not extend deeply, strawberries are especially sensitive to both drought and excess water. Small changes in soil conditions can have immediate effects on plant health and fruit development. Loose, well-drained soil supports healthy root growth. When soil is compacted, air spaces between particles collapse, reducing oxygen availability. Roots rely on oxygen to absorb water and nutrients effectively. In compacted soil, roots struggle to function, even when moisture and nutrients are present. This limits growth above ground and increases stress during fruiting. Strawberries do not tolerate soggy roots. When soil remains saturated, water fills the spaces normally occupied by air. Oxygen levels around the roots fall, slowing root respiration. As a result, nutrient uptake declines, leaf growth weakens, and fruit development becomes uneven. Prolonged saturation increases the risk of fungal disease and root damage. Because of these sensitivities, strawberries often perform best in raised beds. Elevating the planting area improves drainage and keeps excess water moving away from the roots. Raised beds also warm more quickly in spring, supporting earlier growth in cooler climates. Above the soil, strawberry plants spread using runners. Runners are horizontal stems that grow outward from the crown and produce new plants at their tips. When a runner touches soil, it can form roots and establish a new plant. This process allows strawberries to colonize ground efficiently without relying on seed germination. Runner production is closely tied to energy availability. When a plant has more energy than it needs for fruiting, it often directs resources into runner growth. Leaves produce sugars through photosynthesis, and when fruit demand is low, those sugars support stem extension and new plant formation. Gardeners often remove runners to focus energy on fruit production. By cutting runners, the plant redirects sugars back toward flowers and developing fruit rather than spreading outward. When runners are left in place, fruit size and yield on the original plant may decrease as energy is divided between reproduction and expansion. Left unmanaged, runners can create dense patches of strawberry plants. In these conditions, airflow between leaves is reduced. Moisture lingers on foliage and fruit, increasing disease risk. Dense growth also leads to competition for water and nutrients among closely spaced plants. Spacing influences how strawberry plants grow and fruit. When plants are spaced too closely, leaves shade one another, reducing sugar production. Fruit formed in shaded areas often develops less sweetness and color. Adequate spacing allows sunlight to reach more leaves, supporting balanced growth. Mulching plays an important role in managing the environment around strawberry plants. Mulch covers the soil surface, reducing evaporation and stabilizing moisture levels. It also helps regulate soil temperature, keeping roots cooler during hot weather and warmer during cold periods. Straw is commonly used as mulch for strawberries. Straw keeps fruit off the soil surface, reducing contact with moisture and soil-borne pathogens. This practice helps keep berries clean and lowers the risk of rot during wet conditions. The use of straw as mulch is where strawberries get their name. Strawberry plants are sensitive to soil temperature because roots are shallow Temperature changes near the surface affect them quickly. Cool soil supports steady growth, while hot soil increases stress and water loss. Mulch acts as insulation, slowing temperature swings. Water movement through the plant reflects this shallow structure. During active growth, water is absorbed by the roots and transported upward to leaves and fruit. Leaves release water through transpiration. This helps regulate temperature and supports nutrient flow. When water supply is limited, this movement slows, reducing growth. Consistent watering is especially important during flowering and fruit development. Fluctuations in moisture cause uneven cell expansion in fruit, leading to misshapen berries or reduced size. Steady moisture supports uniform growth and better texture. Overwatering has different consequences. Excess water increases fruit size by adding volume, but it does not increase sugar content. This dilutes flavor and softens texture. Over time, frequent overwatering weakens root systems and increases disease risk. Strawberry plants also respond to soil fertility. Balanced nutrients support leaf growth, flower formation, and fruit development. Excess nitrogen promotes leaf growth at the expense of fruit. Plants with too much nitrogen produce dense foliage. This shades fruit and increases humidity within the canopy. Older strawberry plants often produce smaller berries. Over time, crowns become crowded with growth points, reducing efficiency. Renewing plants by replacing older crowns helps maintain productivity and fruit quality. Commercial growers often treat strawberries as annual crops. By replanting each year, they reduce disease buildup and maintain consistent yields. Home gardeners may keep plants for several seasons, managing spacing and runners to control density. Strawberry plants are also sensitive to disturbance. Because the crown is the central growing point, damage to this area can kill the plant. Soil movement, compaction, or improper planting depth can expose or bury the crown, interrupting growth. In cold climates, strawberry plants enter dormancy during winter. Leaves die back, and growth slows or stops. Dormancy protects the crown from freezing damage. Snow cover and mulch help insulate the crown, maintaining stable temperatures through winter. In spring, new leaves emerge from the crown. Stored energy supports early growth before photosynthesis increases. This cycle of growth, spreading, fruiting, and dormancy reflects how strawberries balance rapid reproduction with survival across seasons. The low spreading structure of strawberry plants allows them to adjust rapidly to favorable conditions. When temperature, moisture, and sunlight align, growth accelerates. When conditions worsen, growth slows just as quickly. This responsiveness is part of what makes strawberries both productive and delicate. Their structure allows fast fruit development, but it also makes them sensitive to environmental change. Understanding this balance helps explain why strawberries require careful attention despite their abundance. Strawberry plants are strongly influenced by temperature, light, and timing across the growing season. These factors determine when flowers form, how long fruit develops, and how the plant decides whether to continue fruiting or shift energy elsewhere. The way strawberries respond to these signals explains why different varieties behave differently under the same conditions. Strawberries grow best in cooler temperatures. Moderate spring conditions support steady leaf growth, even pollination, and balanced fruit development. When temperatures remain mild, sugars accumulate gradually in the fruit, and texture develops without stress. Heat changes this balance by increasing respiration and water loss. This limits how much sugar remains available for flavor. Extreme heat reduces fruit quality. As temperatures rise, strawberry plants lose water more quickly through transpiration. To protect themselves, plants reduce growth and slow sugar transport into fruit. Berries that develop during hot periods often ripen faster, but taste milder and soften more quickly. Temperature also affects flowering. In strawberries, flower initiation depends on both temperature and day length, but the balance differs by variety. This difference explains why some strawberries fruit once a year, while others produce multiple harvests. June-bearing strawberries form flower buds when day length shortens and temperatures cool. These buds remain dormant until the following spring. When temperatures rise again, flowering occurs all at once, producing a concentrated harvest over a short period. This pattern suits regions with predictable seasons and mild springs. Ever-bearing strawberries behave differently. They form flower buds under a wider range of conditions, allowing them to produce fruit more than once each year. Instead of one large harvest, they produce smaller flushes of fruit separated by periods of rest. Day-neutral strawberries are even more responsive to temperature than to day length. As long as temperatures remain within a suitable range, these plants continue forming flowers and fruit. When temperatures become too hot or too cold, flowering slows or stops. This sensitivity allows day-neutral varieties to fruit over extended periods when conditions are stable. Light exposure interacts with temperature to shape these patterns. Strawberries require full sun for best fruit production. Leaves exposed to sunlight produce more sugars through photosynthesis. These sugars are then transported into developing fruit, supporting sweetness and color. When light is limited, sugar production declines. Shaded plants may still produce fruit, but berries often develop less flavor and color. Shading also increases humidity around leaves and fruit. This raises disease risk and slows drying after rain. Day length influences how strawberries allocate energy. As days shorten toward the end of summer, many plants reduce flower production and begin preparing for dormancy. Leaves continue photosynthesis, but sugars are increasingly stored in the crown, rather than used for new fruit. Temperature signals guide this transition. Cooler nights slow growth and trigger changes in hormone levels within the plant. These changes shift energy away from rapid reproduction and towards survival. The plant begins reinforcing tissues and storing resources to protect itself through winter. Water availability interacts with these signals. During hot, dry periods, strawberry plants reduce flowering and fruit size to conserve water. During cooler, moist conditions, growth resumes more readily. Because roots are shallow, these responses occur quickly. Seasonal timing also affects runner production. Runners are more likely to form when fruit demand is low and energy supply is high. Warm temperatures and long days encourage runner growth, allowing plants to spread when conditions are favorable. As days shorten and temperatures fall, runner production slows. Energy is redirected back into the crown and roots. This shift supports dormancy and protects the plant from freezing damage. Strawberries enter dormancy in cold winters. Leaves die back, and growth pauses. Dormancy protects the crown. This contains the plant's growing points. Insulation from mulch or snow helps keep crown temperatures stable, preventing damage during freeze-thaw cycles. In spring, temperature increases signal the end of dormancy. Stored energy flows from the crown into developing leaves and flowers. Early growth relies heavily on these reserves before photosynthesis increases. Because of this reliance on stored energy, conditions during the previous season influence spring performance. Plants that experience severe stress during the prior year often produce fewer or weaker flowers. This delayed effect shows how strawberry plants link one season to the next. Rainfall patterns influence fruit quality as well. Rainy seasons often produce berries with milder flavor. Frequent moisture increases fruit size without increasing sugar concentration. Dry, sunny conditions allow sugars to accumulate more efficiently, producing sweeter berries. Humidity plays a role in disease development. Warm, humid conditions support fungal growth on leaves and fruit. Good airflow and spacing reduce humidity around plants, helping leaves dry more quickly after rain or irrigation. Strawberries respond clearly to these combined conditions. A cool, sunny, well-watered spring produces compact plants with balanced fruit. A hot, humid season leads to faster growth, softer berries, and increased disease pressure. This sensitivity makes strawberries good indicators of local weather patterns. Changes in temperature, rainfall, or sunlight are reflected quickly in plant behavior and fruit quality. Each harvest carries evidence of the conditions under which it formed. Growers often adjust planting schedules and variety selection to match local climate. In cooler regions, June-bearing varieties may perform best. In regions with long, mild seasons, ever-bearing or day-neutral varieties allow extended harvests. Management practices work with these environmental signals. Mulching moderates soil temperature, irrigation stabilizes moisture, spacing improves airflow and light exposure. These interventions help keep conditions within the range that supports steady fruiting. Despite this management, strawberries remain responsive to natural variation. Their short development cycle means that conditions over a few weeks can strongly influence outcomes. This is why strawberries can vary noticeably in flavor and texture from one harvest to the next. Understanding how strawberries respond to temperature, light, and seasonal timing explains much of their behavior. It shows why some plants fruit heavily while others pause, why flavor varies across seasons, and why timing matters so much in strawberry cultivation. Strawberries change quickly once they reach maturity. Their soft structure, high water content, and active metabolism mean that the period between peak ripeness and decline is short. This narrow window shapes how strawberries are harvested, handled, and stored. And it explains why fresh strawberries taste noticeably different from those that have traveled long distances. As strawberries ripen, the fruit's color deepens and sugars accumulate. At the same time, the flesh becomes softer as cell walls thin and expand with water. These changes improve sweetness and aroma, but they also reduce structural strength. Fully ripe strawberries bruise easily because pressure breaks cell walls and releases moisture. Strawberries do not continue to ripen after harvest. Once the fruit is removed from the plant, sugar production stops. The sugars and acids present at the moment of picking remain fixed. This makes harvest timing critical. Berries picked too early remain pale and less sweet, while berries picked too late are fragile and deteriorate rapidly. Fully red strawberries are the sweetest. White or green areas indicate underripeness in those sections, often linked to uneven pollination or cooler temperatures during development. Once harvested, these areas do not improve in flavor or color. Harvesting strawberries requires gentle handling. Even light pressure damages internal tissue. Bruised areas darken quickly as enzymes react with oxygen, and moisture released from damaged cells accelerates microbial growth. For this reason, strawberries are typically picked by hand and placed directly into shallow containers to limit stacking weight. After harvest, strawberries remain biologically active. Respiration continues as the fruit uses stored sugars and oxygen to maintain cellular processes. This respiration releases heat and moisture. This contributes to spoilage. Reducing temperature slows respiration, extending shelf life. Refrigeration is the most effective way to slow strawberry deterioration. Cooler temperatures reduce metabolic activity and limit microbial growth. However, refrigeration does not stop these processes entirely. Even under cold conditions, strawberries gradually lose firmness, flavor, and aroma. Aroma compounds are especially fragile. These volatile chemicals give strawberries their characteristic scent, but they dissipate quickly after harvest. The longer a strawberry is stored or transported, the more aroma is lost. This is why freshly harvested strawberries often smell and taste more intense than those shipped over long distances. Washing strawberries too early increases spoilage. Water clings to the fruit's surface and collects around the achenes, creating conditions that support microbial growth. Washing just before use reduces this risk by limiting the time moisture remains on the fruit. Strawberries have a short shelf life because their skin offers little protection. Unlike fruits with thicker skins, strawberries lose moisture easily and provide minimal barrier against microbes. This makes careful storage and prompt consumption important. Handling practices influence quality. Keeping strawberries dry, cool, and uncompressed preserves texture and flavor. Even small improvements in handling can significantly extend usability by slowing physical damage and moisture loss. The balance of sugars and acids gives strawberries their bright flavor. Sugars provide sweetness, while acidity prevents the fruit from tasting flat. This balance is established during growth and does not change after harvest. Environmental conditions during development determine how these flavors form. Soil quality influences this balance. Healthy soil supports steady nutrient uptake, allowing sugars and acids to accumulate evenly. Plants grown in poor soil may produce berries that look ripe but lack depth of flavor. Water availability also shapes flavor. Consistent moisture supports even development. Drought limits sugar transport and reduces size. Excess water near harvest increases volume without increasing sugar concentration, diluting flavor. Temperature during ripening affects texture. Cooler conditions allow slower cell expansion and firmer flesh. Hot conditions speed ripening, but produce softer berries that break down more quickly after harvest. Strawberries are rich in vitamin C and antioxidants. These compounds help protect the plant from environmental stress and also influence color and flavor. The same compounds that protect the plant contribute to the fruit's nutritional value. These compounds are sensitive to storage conditions. Exposure to light, oxygen, and heat reduces antioxidant levels over time. Fresh strawberries therefore provide the highest nutritional value shortly after harvest. Because of their fragility, strawberries are often consumed close to where they are grown. Local harvests reduce the time between field and table, preserving aroma, texture, and flavor. This proximity explains why seasonal strawberries often taste better than out-of-season fruit. Commercial distribution balances shelf life with quality. Varieties chosen for transport may have firmer flesh but slightly reduced flavor. These trade-offs reflect the challenge of moving a delicate fruit through long supply chains. Freezing changes strawberry structure. Ice crystals rupture cell walls, releasing moisture when thawed. This softens texture, but preserves flavor compounds. Frozen strawberries are often used in processed foods where texture is less important. Processing methods such as cooking or drying alter flavor balance. Heat reduces acidity and concentrates sugars, changing how strawberries taste. These methods extend usability but transform the fruit's original sensory qualities. Strawberries engage multiple senses. Color signals ripeness. Aroma indicates freshness. Texture affects eating quality. These sensory cues are closely linked to the fruit's biological state at harvest. Each strawberry reflects weeks of plant growth shaped by temperature, water, soil, and pollination. The final fruit carries physical evidence of those conditions in its flavor, texture, and appearance. This sensitivity explains why strawberries vary so noticeably from one harvest to the next. Small changes in weather or handling led to clear differences in quality. The fruit adjusts rapidly to its environment because its development cycle is short. Understanding how strawberries behave after harvest highlights why timing and care matter so much. The same qualities that make strawberries appealing also make them delicate. Their softness, moisture, and aroma define both their flavor and their limits. Strawberry plants invest a large share of their energy in rapid reproduction. This strategy produces many fruits in a short window, but it also places demands on the plant's tissues and reserves. How strawberries manage disease pressure, plant aging, and renewal reflects this relationship between speed and longevity. Strawberries are susceptible to fungal diseases. Many of these organisms thrive in damp conditions where moisture remains on leaves and fruit. Because strawberry plants grow close to the ground, water from rain or irrigation easily splashes onto foliage and berries. When air movement is limited, surfaces stay wet longer, allowing fungal spores to establish. Air circulation reduces this risk. When leaves and fruit dry quickly, spores have less opportunity to germinate. Spacing between plants, runner management, and pruning of old leaves all contribute to better airflow. These practices reduce humidity within the canopy and limit the spread of disease without relying solely on treatments. Mulching supports disease control in a physical way. By covering the soil surface, mulch prevents soil from splashing onto fruit during rain. This reduces contact with pathogens and keeps berries cleaner. Straw is commonly used because it drains well and allows air to circulate beneath the fruit. Mulch also helps regulate soil temperature and moisture. Stable soil conditions reduce stress on the plant, supporting stronger leaf growth and better resistance to disease. When plants are stressed by drought or heat, they become more vulnerable to infection. Disease pressure increases as plants age. Over time, older leaves and crowns accumulate damage from repeated growth cycles. Small injuries provide entry points for pathogens. This is one reason commercial growers often replace strawberry plants regularly, rather than maintaining them indefinitely. Commercial production frequently treats strawberries as annual crops. By planting fresh each year, growers reduce the buildup of disease in soil and plant tissue. New plants begin the season with clean crowns and vigorous growth, supporting higher yields and more uniform fruit. Home gardeners often keep strawberry plants for multiple seasons. While this approach can be successful, productivity usually declines with age. Older plants tend to produce smaller berries and fewer flowers. Crowns become crowded with growth points, reducing efficiency and increasing competition within the plant. Renewing strawberry beds helps restore productivity. Removing older plants and establishing new ones resets spacing and reduces disease pressure. Runners produced by healthy plants can be used to create new plantings, carrying forward desirable traits while restoring vigor. Strawberry crowns play a central role in plant survival. The crown contains the growing points for leaves, flowers, and runners. Damage to this structure can kill the plant. Proper planting depth is important. Crowns buried too deeply may rot, while crowns exposed too much can dry out or freeze. Dormancy protects the crown during cold winters. As temperatures fall, leaves die back and growth slows or stops. Energy is stored in the crown, and tissues harden to withstand freezing. Mulch or snow cover insulates the crown, reducing temperature fluctuations that can cause damage. In spring, new leaves emerge from the crown. Early growth relies on stored energy before photosynthesis increases. Plants that entered dormancy with strong reserves produce more vigorous spring growth and stronger flowering. Strawberries also respond to soil compaction. Because roots are shallow, compacted soil restricts root expansion and limits water and oxygen uptake. Compaction often occurs from foot traffic, heavy rain, or machinery. Loose soil supports healthier roots and more resilient plants. Raised beds help reduce compaction. By elevating the planting area, soil structure is preserved and drainage improves. Raised beds also allow gardeners to control soil composition more precisely, supporting consistent growth. Nutrient balance influences disease resistance. Plants with adequate nutrients produce stronger leaves and tissues that resist infection. Excess nitrogen, however, produces soft, leafy growth that is more susceptible to disease. Balanced nutrition supports both productivity and resilience. Strawberry plants attract birds and small animals. Ripening fruit provides an accessible food source. Birds can remove large portions of a crop quickly, especially as fruit becomes fully red and aromatic. Netting creates a physical barrier that protects fruit without altering plant growth. Protection methods influence plant behavior indirectly. When fruit is protected and remains on the plant longer, energy continues flowing into ripening berries rather than being lost to predation. This supports fuller development and better flavor. Strawberries reflect environmental conditions clearly. Stress from disease, drought, or poor soil appears quickly in leaf color, growth rate, and fruit quality. Because the plant's growth cycle is short, problems become visible within weeks rather than years. This sensitivity makes strawberries useful indicators of garden health. Healthy plants with clean leaves and balanced growth signal stable conditions. Declining plants indicate issues with moisture, airflow, or soil quality that can often be corrected. Despite their fragility, strawberries are productive. A single plant can produce many berries in one season when conditions are right. This productivity depends on constant renewal rather than long-term structure. Energy is directed toward fruit and runners rather than thick stems or deep roots. This strategy explains why strawberries benefit from regular care and renewal. They are not built to persist unchanged for decades. Instead, they thrive through cycles of growth, fruiting, decline, and replacement. Understanding how strawberries manage disease, aging, and renewal clarifies their role in gardens and farms. They reward attention and timely intervention. When conditions are maintained, strawberries adjust rapidly with healthy growth and abundant fruit. As the season progresses, plants that remain healthy continue allocating energy toward fruit, runner production, or storage, depending on conditions. Those under stress shift resources towards survival. These decisions are reflected in plant appearance and yield. The relationship between vulnerability and productivity defines strawberries. Their softness and shallow structure create risk, but their rapid growth and responsiveness allow recovery when conditions improve. This balance shapes how strawberries are grown, protected, and renewed year after year. Strawberries show clear patterns when their growth is observed across multiple seasons rather than a single harvest. While the fruit develops quickly, the plant's long-term behavior depends on how it balances energy use, recovery, and preparation from one year to the next. These patterns explain why some plants remain productive while others decline after only a few seasons. Each growing season contributes to the plant's overall condition. During spring and early summer, energy produced in the leaves supports flowering, fruit development, and runner growth. At the same time, some of that energy is redirected into the crown. This stored energy becomes critical later, especially when the plant must survive stress or prepare for dormancy. When conditions are favorable, strawberry plants produce healthy leaves with good surface area for photosynthesis. These leaves generate sugars that move into developing fruit and into storage tissues. Plants that complete the season with strong reserves are better prepared for the next cycle of growth. Stress interrupts this process. Drought, extreme heat, disease, or heavy fruiting can reduce the amount of energy available for storage. When reserves are low at the end of the season, plants enter dormancy in a weakened state. This affects how strongly they resume growth the following spring. The effects of stress are often delayed. A plant may still produce fruit during a difficult season, but the cost appears later. Reduced reserves lead to fewer flowers, smaller fruit, or weaker runner production in the next cycle. This delayed response links one season directly to the next. Strawberry plants record these conditions in the structure of the crown. Each season adds growth points to the crown as leaves and flowers emerge. Over time, the crown becomes more complex. When energy supply is sufficient, these growth points remain active and productive. When energy is limited, some points become less efficient or stop producing altogether. Older plants often show this change clearly. Crowns become crowded with growth points competing for limited resources. Leaves may emerge smaller, and fruit size declines. This is one reason older strawberry plants typically produce smaller berries even when soil and water are adequate. Runner production also reflects seasonal energy balance. During periods of strong growth and low stress, plants produce more runners. These runners allow the plant to reproduce vegetatively and spread into new space. When conditions are poor, runner production slows as the plant prioritizes survival over expansion. Gardeners often use runner production as a signal of plant health. Abundant runners suggest surplus energy, while weak or absent runners may indicate stress. Managing runners helps control how energy is allocated between reproduction and fruiting. Winter survival depends heavily on the condition of the crown. As temperatures drop, leaves die back and growth stops. The crown holds stored energy and protects the plant's growing points. Plants that enter winter with depleted reserves are more vulnerable to freezing damage and disease. Snow cover and mulch improve survival by insulating the crown. Stable temperatures reduce freeze-thaw cycles that can damage tissue. In areas without reliable snow, mulch becomes especially important for protecting crowns during cold spells. Spring growth reveals how well the plant endured the previous season. Strong plants produce new leaves quickly and begin forming flowers early. Weak plants show delayed growth, sparse leaves, or reduced flowering. These differences often trace back to energy balance in the previous year. Because strawberries are perennials, their productivity depends on this continuity. They are not renewed entirely each season like annual crops. Instead, each season builds on the last. Decisions made during planting, spacing, watering, and runner management affect outcomes years later. Commercial growers manage this by replacing plants frequently. By treating strawberries as annuals, they avoid long-term decline and disease buildup. Each season begins with young plants that have not yet accumulated stress. Home gardens often rely on renewal instead. Gardeners may allow runners to establish new plants while removing older crowns. This approach maintains continuity while restoring vigor. New plants inherit the site's conditions but begin with fresh crowns and efficient growth. Soil health plays a central role in multi-season performance. Healthy soil supports consistent nutrient uptake year after year. Compacted or depleted soil limits recovery between seasons. Because strawberry roots remain shallow, soil condition has an immediate impact on long-term resilience. Water management across seasons also matters. Plants that experience repeated cycles of drought and recovery gradually lose efficiency, leaves become less productive, and crowns store less energy. Stable moisture supports steady recovery and preparation for dormancy. Disease pressure accumulates over time. Pathogens that survive in soil or plant debris increase with each season if not managed. Removing old leaves, renewing beds, and maintaining airflow reduce this buildup and support healthier long-term growth. Strawberry plants adjust rapidly to improvement as well. When stress is reduced, growth rebounds, new leaves form, runners appear, and fruit size improves. This responsiveness allows strawberries to recover when conditions are corrected, even after difficult seasons. The relationship between rapid fruiting and long-term survival defines strawberries as perennial plants. They are capable of producing large harvests quickly, but only when energy is replenished between cycles. When recovery is incomplete, decline follows. Observing strawberries over multiple seasons reveals these patterns clearly. Healthy plants show steady growth, regular flowering, and controlled runner production. Declining plants show crowded crowns, smaller fruit, and reduced vigor. Understanding this seasonal continuity helps explain why strawberries require active management despite their abundance. They reward care that considers not just the current harvest, but the plant's condition heading into the next season. Each year adds another layer to the plant's history: leaves that grew, fruit that formed, stress that occurred, and recovery that followed all influence future performance. Strawberries carry this history forward in their crowns. This connection across seasons explains why strawberries feel both resilient and fragile. They can adjust rapidly to favorable conditions, but they also reflect stress rapidly. Their success depends on maintaining balance over time, rather than maximizing output in a single year. Strawberries also show clear variation depending on where they are grown. Climate, soil type, and local conditions shape how plants develop, how much fruit they produce, and how that fruit tastes. These differences are not abstract. They appear in plant size, leaf density, timing of ripening, and the balance of sugars and acids in each berry. Climate plays a central role in this variation. Strawberries grow best in cooler conditions, where moderate temperatures allow steady growth and gradual sugar accumulation. In regions with mild springs and cool nights, plants often produce firmer fruit with more pronounced flavor. In warmer regions, strawberries may develop more quickly, but lose flavor as heat accelerates respiration and limits sugar retention. Temperature influences not only fruit quality, but also plant behavior. In cooler climates, flowering and fruiting occur over a more defined window. In warmer climates, plants may flower earlier or continue producing fruit for longer periods, depending on variety. These shifts affect how energy is distributed between fruit runners. And storage. Rainfall patterns also shape regional differences. Areas with frequent rain produce strawberries with higher water content and milder flavor. Excess moisture increases fruit size without increasing sugar concentration. In contrast, regions with dry, sunny conditions often produce smaller but sweeter berries, as sugars accumulate more efficiently when water uptake is steady but not excessive. Soil structure varies widely across growing regions. Strawberries grown in sandy soils drain quickly and warm early in the season. These conditions support early growth, but require careful watering to prevent drought stress. Clay-heavy soils retain moisture longer. This can support growth during dry periods, but increases the risk of waterlogged roots if drainage is poor. Because strawberry roots remain shallow, these soil differences have immediate effects. In well-aerated soil, roots absorb water and nutrients efficiently. In compacted or poorly drained soil, root function slows, limiting leaf growth and fruit development. These effects appear quickly in plant vigor and yield. Raised beds are often used to manage regional soil limitations. Elevating the planting area improves drainage in heavy soils and allows greater control over soil composition. Raised beds also warm faster in spring. This benefits early growth in cooler regions. Regional sunlight patterns influence growth as well. Strawberries require full sun to produce sweet fruit. In areas with frequent cloud cover, plants may grow well, but produce berries with less intense flavor. In regions with abundant sunlight, sugar production increases, supporting deeper color and aroma. Wind exposure creates additional variation. In windy regions, plants lose moisture more quickly through transpiration. This can stress roots close to the soil surface and reduce fruit size if water supply is inconsistent. Wind also cools plant surfaces. This may slow development in cooler climates. Altitude affects strawberry growth in subtle ways. Higher elevations often experience cooler temperatures and greater day-to-night temperature differences. These conditions can enhance flavor by slowing ripening and allowing sugars and acids to balance more fully. However, shorter growing seasons at higher elevations limit total yield. Local weather patterns influence harvest timing. A cool, slow spring delays ripening, but often improves quality. A warm spring accelerates development, but can shorten the harvest window. Because strawberries ripen quickly once color change begins, small differences in temperature can shift harvest by days rather than weeks. Strawberries also reflect regional differences in pest and disease pressure. Warm, humid climates support fungal diseases more readily than dry climates. In these regions, spacing, airflow, and mulching become more critical. In drier climates, disease pressure is lower, but water management becomes the primary challenge. Variety selection often reflects these regional pressures. Some varieties are chosen for disease resistance in humid climates, others are selected for heat tolerance or early ripening in cooler regions. These choices influence fruit size, firmness, and flavor. Commercial growers adjust planting schedules based on regional conditions. In cooler areas, planting may occur earlier to take advantage of short growing seasons. In warmer areas, planting may be timed to avoid peak heat during flowering and fruit development. Local soil fertility also shapes variation. Regions with naturally rich soils support vigorous growth, but excessive fertility can lead to dense foliage and reduced fruit quality. In less fertile soils, careful nutrient management supports balanced growth and flavor development. Organic matter content varies widely by region. Soils rich in organic material retain moisture and support microbial activity that improves nutrient availability. These conditions support steady growth and consistent fruit quality. Strawberries grown close to where they are consumed often taste better. Reduced transport time preserves aroma compounds and texture. Local harvests reflect the immediate conditions of their environment, making flavor more sensitive to recent weather. This sensitivity explains why strawberries from different regions taste different even when grown from the same variety. The plant responds directly to its surroundings, and the fruit records those conditions in its flavor, texture, and appearance. Seasonal strawberries are often more flavorful because they develop under favorable conditions. Off-season production relies on controlled environments or long-distance transport. This alters growth conditions and reduces freshness. Gardeners often notice these regional differences when comparing strawberries from different locations. The same plant grown in two gardens may behave differently based on soil type, sunlight, and water availability. Understanding regional variation helps explain why no single growing method suits all strawberries. Successful cultivation depends on matching plant needs to local conditions rather than forcing uniform practices across environments. Strawberries are adaptable within limits. They can grow in many regions, but fruit quality reflects how closely conditions align with their preferences. When temperature, soil, water, and light are well matched, strawberries respond with steady growth and abundant fruit. These regional patterns highlight the responsiveness of strawberries as plants. Their short growth cycle and roots close to the soil surface make them quick to reflect environmental conditions. Each harvest tells a story of the place where it formed. Strawberries also shape and respond to the spaces around them. Their low growth habit, roots close to the soil surface, and spreading runners influence how land is used, how other plants establish nearby, and how the immediate environment changes over time. These spatial interactions affect plant health, fruit quality, and long-term productivity. Because strawberry plants grow close to the ground, they interact strongly with the soil surface. Leaves form a low canopy that shades the soil beneath. This shading reduces evaporation, helping soil retain moisture during warm periods. At the same time, shaded soil stays cooler. This supports root function and slows stress during hot weather. The shallow root system of strawberries occupies the upper soil layers, where moisture and nutrients fluctuate most. These roots compete directly with nearby plants for water and nutrients. In dense plantings, this competition increases, especially during dry periods. When water becomes limited, strawberries adjust rapidly by slowing growth and reducing fruit size. Spacing plays a central role in managing this competition. Plants spaced too closely shade one another, reducing light exposure to inner leaves. These shaded leaves produce less sugar. This limits energy available for fruit development. Adequate spacing allows light to reach more of the canopy, supporting even growth and better fruit quality. Air movement near the ground is also influenced by spacing. Strawberry plants grown too close together trap moisture around leaves and fruit. This increases humidity and slows drying after rain or irrigation. Prolonged surface moisture creates favorable conditions for fungal disease. Wider spacing improves airflow and reduces disease risk. Mulch alters how strawberries interact with the soil surface. By covering bare soil, mulch reduces direct contact between fruit and the ground. This keeps berries cleaner and lowers exposure to soil-borne pathogens. Mulch also reduces splashing during rain. This further limits disease spread. Straw mulch is commonly used because it drains well and allows air to circulate beneath the fruit. The loose structure of straw prevents moisture from pooling around berries. This physical separation between fruit and soil plays a major role in preserving fruit quality during wet conditions. Mulch also influences soil temperature. By insulating the soil surface, mulch slows rapid temperature changes. This protects roots close to the soil surface from extreme heat during the day and sudden cooling at night. More stable soil temperatures support steady root function and nutrient uptake. Raised beds modify spatial relationships further. Elevating the planting area improves drainage and prevents water from pooling around roots. Raised beds also allow growers to control soil composition more precisely, supporting consistent structure and fertility. These conditions reduce stress and improve overall plant performance. Strawberries spread horizontally through runners. This changes how space is occupied over time. When runners establish new plants, the patch expands outward. This spreading habit allows strawberries to fill open ground quickly when conditions are favorable. As new plants establish, competition within the patch increases. Older plants may receive less light and fewer nutrients, as younger plants take root nearby. Over time, this leads to uneven growth and declining productivity unless spacing is managed. Gardeners often manage this by removing excess runners or thinning plants. Thinning restores airflow and light penetration, allowing remaining plants to function more efficiently. This practice reduces competition and supports better fruit development. Strawberries also influence how other plants grow nearby. Their low canopy limits space for taller weeds, especially when plant density is moderate. However, aggressive weeds with deep roots can outcompete strawberries by accessing water beyond the strawberry root zone. Because strawberries rely on roots close to the soil surface, they benefit from loose soil free of compaction. Compacted soil limits root expansion and reduces water infiltration. Compaction often occurs from repeated foot traffic or heavy rainfall. Avoiding pressure near strawberry beds preserves soil structure and root health. The immediate environment around strawberry plants affects moisture retention. Dense foliage traps moisture near the soil surface, while open plantings allow faster drying. This balance influences disease pressure and irrigation needs. Strawberries also respond to the shape of the land. Low-lying areas collect cold air and moisture, increasing frost and disease risk. Gentle slopes drain cold air and excess water more effectively. Planting location therefore influences survival and fruit quality. Wind exposure alters spatial dynamics as well. Wind increases evaporation from leaves and soil, increasing water demand. In windy areas, strawberries may require more frequent irrigation. At the same time, wind improves airflow, reducing humidity and disease risk. Sheltered locations reduce water loss, but may increase humidity. In these settings, careful spacing and pruning become more important to prevent moisture buildup around leaves and fruit. Over time, strawberry patches develop distinct microclimates. Shaded soil remains cooler and moister. Exposed edges dry more quickly. These small-scale differences influence growth patterns within the same planting. Fruit quality often varies within a single patch as a result. Berries near the center of dense growth may be smaller or softer, while those on the edges receive more light and air. Managing patch density helps reduce these internal differences. Strawberries also affect how land is used in gardens and farms. Because they spread and produce quickly, they are often planted in dedicated beds. This allows focused management of soil, water, and spacing. In commercial settings, rows are spaced to allow equipment access and airflow. In home gardens, beds are often arranged for hand harvesting and ease of care. These layouts reflect the plant's growth habit and sensitivity to space. As seasons pass, spatial patterns repeat. Runners extend, plants establish, competition increases, and thinning restores balance. This cycle mirrors the plant's broader rhythm of growth and renewal. Understanding how strawberries interact with space explains many cultivation practices. Spacing, mulching, raised beds, and thinning all work with the plant's natural tendencies rather than against them. Strawberries thrive when space is managed to support light, airflow, and root function. When space becomes crowded or poorly drained, stress increases and productivity declines. These spatial dynamics show how strawberries connect growth with place. The plant's low stature and spreading habit tie it closely to the soil surface and surrounding environment. Each planting becomes shaped by how space is used and maintained. Over time, the relationship between strawberries and their environment becomes visible in plant health, fruit quality, and yield. Managing space effectively allows strawberries to express their full potential within the limits of their structure. Strawberries function within a limited range of physical limits, their soft tissues, roots close to the soil surface, and rapid growth make them productive, but those same traits also define where problems begin. By looking at how strawberries respond when conditions approach these limits, it becomes clearer why timing, moderation, and consistency matter so much for this plant. Temperature sets one of the clearest boundaries. Strawberries grow best when conditions are cool to mild. When temperatures rise too high, respiration increases inside the plant. Sugars produced by the leaves are used more quickly to maintain basic cellular activity rather than being stored in fruit. As a result, berries ripen faster, but develop less sweetness and aroma. Heat also affects texture. In hot conditions, cell expansion occurs rapidly, producing softer fruit with thinner cell walls. These berries bruise more easily and break down faster after harvest. Extended heat can also shorten the flowering period, reducing total yield. Cold creates a different boundary. Late frosts can damage flowers and young fruit because these tissues are soft and contain high water content. When ice forms inside the cells, membranes rupture. Even brief freezing temperatures can interrupt development at this stage, preventing fruit from forming. Water availability defines another set of limits. Strawberries depend on steady moisture to support cell expansion in fruit and leaf growth. When water becomes scarce, the plant reduces growth to conserve resources. Leaves may lose turgor, fruit size decreases, and flowering may slow. Prolonged drought places cumulative stress on strawberry plants. Because roots are shallow, they cannot access deeper moisture reserves. Repeated dry periods reduce energy production and limit the amount of sugar stored in the crown. This affects not only the current harvest, but also future growth. Excess water pushes the plant beyond its preferred range in the opposite direction. When soil remains saturated, oxygen availability around the roots drops, root respiration slows, nutrient uptake declines, and growth above ground weakens. Fruit may appear large, but lack flavor because sugar transport is disrupted. Soil compaction intensifies these problems. Compacted soil restricts air and water movement. Even when water is present, roots struggle to function. Compaction often results from foot traffic, machinery, or heavy rainfall on bare soil. Strawberries adjust rapidly to this stress because their roots occupy only the upper soil layers. Light availability sets another boundary. Strawberries require full sun to produce flavorful fruit. Leaves exposed to sunlight generate sugars that are transported into developing berries. When light is limited by shade or overcrowding, sugar production drops and fruit quality declines. Within the plant, limits appear in how much weight tissues can support. Strawberry fruit is supported by short stems emerging from the crown. As berries enlarge, the weight they place on these stems increases. Soft tissues are not designed to carry heavy loads indefinitely. Overextended stems bend or break, especially in wet conditions when tissues are weaker. Nutrient balance also defines limits. Strawberries require sufficient nutrients to support leaf growth, flowering, and fruiting. When nutrients are lacking, growth slows and fruit quality declines. When nutrients are excessive, especially nitrogen, plants produce abundant leaves at the expense of fruit. Dense foliage increases humidity and disease risk while shading developing berries. Disease pressure increases when plants operate near these limits. Stress from heat, water imbalance, or nutrient excess weakens plant tissues. Weakened tissues are more susceptible to fungal infection. Disease is often not the initial problem, but a consequence of stress that reduces the plant's natural defenses. Timing influences how strongly these limits are felt. Stress early in the season affects flowering and fruit set. Stress during fruit expansion affects size and flavor. Stress late in the season reduces energy storage in the crown, influencing the following year's growth. Because strawberries develop quickly, the effects of stress appear rapidly. A few weeks of unfavorable conditions can alter an entire harvest. This responsiveness makes strawberries sensitive, but also informative. The plant shows clearly when conditions move out of range. Management practices are designed to keep conditions within these limits. Mulching moderates soil temperature and moisture. Irrigation stabilizes water supply. Spacing improves light and airflow. Raised beds improve drainage. Each practice addresses a specific boundary the plant cannot cross without consequence. Variety choice also reflects these limits. Some varieties tolerate heat better, while others perform best in cool climates. Some resist disease more effectively. Choosing varieties suited to local conditions reduces the likelihood that plants will be pushed beyond their tolerances. Strawberries can recover when stress is brief and conditions improve. Leaves regain function, growth resumes, and fruit quality stabilizes. Recovery depends on remaining energy reserves and tissue integrity. When stress is repeated without recovery, decline becomes more likely. This relationship between resilience and fragility defines strawberries as plants. They are capable of rapid growth and high productivity, but only within a narrow window of conditions. Outside that window, quality and yield decline quickly. Understanding these limits explains why strawberries respond so strongly to changes in weather and care. They are not forgiving of extremes, but they are responsive to correction. When conditions are adjusted back into range, the plant often recovers quickly. Each strawberry produced carries evidence of how close the plant came to these boundaries. Flavor, size, firmness, and aroma all reflect how well temperature, water, light, and nutrients were balanced during development. These boundaries do not represent failure. They define the operating space of the plant. Successful strawberry cultivation involves keeping growth within this space rather than pushing for maximum output under marginal conditions. By observing how strawberries respond at their limits, it becomes easier to understand their needs. The plant communicates stress through visible changes in leaves, fruit, and growth rate. Responding early prevents small problems from becoming permanent damage. Strawberries thrive when their limits are respected. When conditions remain within their tolerances, the plant repeats its cycle smoothly, producing fruit that reflects balanced growth rather than forced production. Strawberry plants reveal important patterns when observed across multiple years rather than a single growing season. Although the fruit forms quickly, the plant's longer-term performance depends on how well it balances growth, recovery, and preparation from one season to the next. These patterns explain why some plantings remain productive while others decline after only a few cycles. Each growing season contributes to the plant's internal condition. During spring and early summer, leaves produce sugars through photosynthesis. These sugars support flowering, fruit expansion, and runner growth. At the same time, a portion of this energy is moved into storage within the crown. This stored energy becomes essential later, especially when the plant faces stress or enters dormancy. When conditions are favorable, strawberry plants finish the season with strong reserves. Leaves remain active long enough to replenish what was used during fruiting. The crown becomes firm and well supplied, supporting survival through winter and rapid regrowth in spring. Plants that complete the season this way often begin the next cycle with vigorous leaves and early flowering. Stress interrupts this process. Drought, prolonged heat, disease pressure, or heavy fruiting can reduce the amount of energy available for storage. When reserves are low, the plant enters dormancy in a weakened state. This weakness may not be obvious immediately, but it affects performance in the following season. The effects of stress often appear with a delay. A strawberry plant may still produce fruit during a difficult season, but the cost becomes visible later. Reduced reserves lead to fewer flowers, smaller fruit, or weaker runner production in the next cycle. This delayed response links one year directly to the next. The crown records this history. Each season adds growth points as leaves and flowers emerge. Over time, the crown becomes more complex. When energy supply is sufficient, these growth points remain productive. When energy is limited, some points produce fewer leaves or flowers, reducing overall efficiency. Older plants often show these changes clearly. Crowns become crowded with competing growth points. Leaves may emerge smaller, and fruit size declines even when water and nutrients are adequate. This crowding reduces the plant's ability to distribute energy evenly. Runner production also reflects multi-season energy balance. During periods of surplus energy, plants produce more runners. These runners allow the plant to reproduce vegetatively and establish new crowns nearby. When energy is limited, runner production slows as the plant prioritizes survival over expansion. Gardeners often interpret runner activity as a signal of plant condition. Vigorous runner growth suggests surplus energy, while weak runner formation may indicate stress. Managing runners helps control how energy is allocated between spreading and fruiting. Winter survival depends heavily on the condition of the crown. As temperatures fall, leaves die back and growth pauses. The crown holds stored energy and protects the plant's growing points. Plants that enter winter with depleted reserves are more vulnerable to freezing injury and disease. Snow cover and mulch improve survival by insulating the crown. Stable temperatures reduce freeze-thaw cycles that damage tissue. In regions without reliable snow, mulch becomes especially important for protecting crowns through cold periods. Spring growth reveals how well the plant endured the previous season. Strong plants produce new leaves quickly and begin forming flowers early. Weaker plants show delayed growth, sparse foliage, or reduced flowering. These differences often trace back to energy balance in the prior year. Because strawberries are perennials, their productivity depends on this continuity. Each season builds on the last rather than starting from scratch. Decisions about watering, spacing, runner management, and disease control influence outcomes years later. Commercial growers manage this by replacing plants frequently. Treating strawberries as annual crops avoids long-term decline and disease accumulation. Each season begins with young plants that have not yet experienced stress. Home gardens often rely on renewal instead. Gardeners may allow runners from healthy plants to establish new crowns while removing older ones. This approach preserves continuity while restoring vigor. New plants begin with efficient crowns and strong growth potential. Soil health plays a central role in multi-season performance. Healthy soil supports consistent nutrient uptake year after year. Compacted or depleted soil limits recovery between seasons. Because strawberry roots remain shallow, soil condition has an immediate impact on long-term resilience. Water management across seasons also matters. Plants exposed to repeated cycles of drought and recovery gradually lose efficiency. Leaves produce less energy, and crowns store fewer reserves. Stable moisture supports consistent recovery and preparation for dormancy. Disease pressure accumulates over time as well. Pathogens that survive in soil or plant debris increase with each season if not managed. Removing old leaves, renewing beds, and maintaining airflow reduce this buildup and support healthier long-term growth. Strawberry plants adjust rapidly to improvement. When stress is reduced, growth rebounds, new leaves form, runner production resumes, and fruit size improves. This responsiveness allows strawberries to recover even after difficult seasons, provided conditions are corrected. The relationship between rapid fruiting and long-term survival defines strawberries as perennial plants. They can produce large harvests quickly, but only when energy is replenished between cycles. When recovery is incomplete, decline follows. Observing strawberries over multiple seasons reveals these patterns clearly. Healthy plantings show steady growth, regular flowering, and controlled runner production. Declining plantings show crowded crowns, smaller fruit, and reduced vigor. Understanding this continuity explains why strawberries require active management despite their abundance. They reward care that considers not only the current harvest, but also the plant's condition heading into the next season. Each year adds another layer to the plant's history. Leaves that grew, fruit that formed, stress that occurred, and recovery that followed all influence future performance. Strawberries carry this history forward within their crowns. This connection across seasons explains why strawberries feel both resilient and fragile. They adjust rapidly to favorable conditions, but they also reveal stress just as quickly. Their success depends on maintaining balance over time, rather than maximizing output in any single year. Strawberry plants also reveal how a single growing season is organized from start to finish. While long-term patterns shape resilience, the sequence within 1 year determines how smoothly the plant moves from early growth to fruiting, and then toward rest. Each stage prepares the conditions for the next, and interruptions at any point affect what follows. The season begins with activation at the crown. After dormancy ends, stored energy flows upward into developing leaves. These early leaves are small but efficient, opening quickly to capture light. At this stage, the plant relies heavily on reserves stored during the previous season because photosynthesis has not yet reached full capacity. As leaves expand, photosynthetic output increases. Sugars produced in the leaves support continued leaf growth and the formation of flower buds. The relationship between leaf expansion and flower initiation is sensitive to temperature and water availability. Cool, steady conditions allow both processes to proceed without competition. Flower buds form at the crown and emerge on short stems. Their development depends on the plant having enough energy after supporting leaf growth. If early growth is stressed by drought or cold, fewer flower buds form. This reduces the number of potential berries later in the season. Once flowers open, the plant enters a high-demand phase. Pollination must occur during a brief window while flowers are receptive. At the same time, leaves must continue producing sugars to support developing fruit. Water movement becomes especially important as expanding tissues require steady moisture. After successful pollination, fruit development accelerates. Cells divide and expand rapidly, increasing fruit size. Sugars move from the leaves into the swelling stem tissue beneath the achenes. During this period, the plant's demand for water and nutrients peaks. If conditions remain favorable, growth proceeds evenly. Leaves stay active, fruit develops uniformly, and the plant maintains relationship between current fruiting and future needs. When conditions fluctuate, the plant adjusts quickly, growth slows, fruit size changes, or flowering pauses. Mid-season marks a shift in priorities. As early fruit ripens and is harvested, the plant reassesses energy allocation. In June-bearing varieties, most energy has already been directed into a single fruiting event. After harvest, leaves continue photosynthesis, and energy is redirected towards storage and runner production. In ever-bearing and day-neutral varieties, the cycle repeats in smaller waves. After one flush of fruit, the plant may rest briefly, then initiate new flowers if temperatures remain suitable. Each wave depends on how much energy remains available after the previous one. Runner production often increases once major fruiting slows. Runners extend outward from the crown, forming new plants. This spreading allows strawberries to reproduce vegetatively during periods when fruit demand is lower. If energy supply is limited, runner production decreases. Late summer brings another transition. As day length shortens and temperatures change, the plant gradually reduces flower production. Leaves remain active, but more sugars are directed back into the crown rather than into new fruit. This shift prepares the plant for dormancy. Water demand changes during this phase. While leaves still transpire, fruit demand is lower. Consistent moisture supports recovery and storage. Drought during late summer reduces the amount of energy stored in the crown, weakening the plant's preparation for winter. As autumn approaches, leaf activity slows, chlorophyll breaks down, and nutrients are reclaimed from the leaves before they die back. This nutrient recycling allows the plant to conserve resources rather than losing them when leaves are shed. Dormancy begins as temperatures drop further. Growth stops, and the crown becomes the primary site of stored energy. Tissues harden, increasing resistance to freezing. Mulch and soil cover help stabilize temperatures around the crown, protecting it from sudden cold snaps. Winter represents a period of protection rather than inactivity. While visible growth is absent, the plant's internal structure remains intact. Stored sugars and nutrients remain available, preserved for rapid use when conditions improve. The transition back into spring depends on how well this storage phase was completed. Plants that stored sufficient energy resume growth quickly, producing healthy leaves and early flowers. Plants with depleted reserves show delayed or uneven growth. This dependence on prior stages explains why strawberry performance is cumulative. Each part of the season influences the next. A strong spring supports good fruiting. Balanced fruiting supports recovery. Effective recovery supports dormancy. Stable dormancy supports strong spring growth. Because strawberries develop quickly, these connections are compressed into a short time frame. The entire cycle from leaf emergence to fruit harvest may occur within weeks. This compression makes strawberries sensitive to disruption, but also allows them to respond rapidly to improvement. Management practices work with this seasonal structure. Irrigation supports steady water movement. Mulching stabilizes temperature and moisture. Spacing maintains light and airflow. These practices help each stage complete its role before the next begins. Understanding the internal sequence of a strawberry's year helps explain why timing matters so much. The plant does not simply produce fruit whenever conditions allow. It follows an ordered progression shaped by temperature, light, and energy flow. When this progression remains intact, strawberries move smoothly from growth to fruiting to rest. When it is disrupted, the effects ripple forward, influencing multiple stages rather than a single outcome. Each strawberry harvested reflects not just the moment of ripening, but the success of the entire seasonal sequence that came before it. Growth, flowering, fruiting, recovery, and dormancy are all written into the final fruit. Strawberry plants operate as integrated systems, rather than isolated parts. Roots, crown, leaves, flowers, fruit, and runners function together, linked by the movement of water, sugars, and signals. Understanding how these parts coordinate explains why strawberries can shift quickly between fruiting, spreading, and recovery within a single season. Water movement connects the entire plant. Water absorbed by roots close to the soil surface moves upward through short stems into leaves and fruit. Leaves release water through transpiration. This helps pull additional water and dissolve nutrients upward from the soil. This flow supports cooling, nutrient transport, and cell expansion. Because roots are shallow, this system responds rapidly to changes in soil moisture. When water is plentiful, movement through the plant is steady. When soil dries, flow slows almost immediately. Leaves reduce transpiration, fruit expansion slows, and growth pauses to conserve resources. Sugar movement follows a complementary path. Sugars produced in the leaves through photosynthesis move into areas of active growth. During flowering and fruit development, sugars are directed toward the crown and developing berries. During periods of lower demand, sugars are stored in the crown and roots. This redirection allows strawberries to adjust priorities. When flowers are present, energy supports reproduction. When fruit is harvested or flowering pauses, energy shifts toward runner production or storage. These changes occur without external signals because the plant adjusts directly to internal demand. The crown plays a central coordinating role. It is the junction where leaves, flowers, and runners originate. Signals from developing fruit influence how much energy the crown sends to different growth points. A heavy fruit load draws sugars into fruiting stems, while reduced fruiting allows energy to accumulate or move into runners. Leaves differ in their contribution depending on position and exposure. Leaves receiving full sun produce more sugars than shaded leaves. This uneven production influences which parts of the plant grow most strongly. Runners and flowers often emerge from areas with strong leaf support. Airflow and spacing affect this coordination. Dense foliage reduces light penetration and slows drying, lowering leaf efficiency. Well-spaced plants allow light to reach more leaves, distributing energy production more evenly across the plant. Fruit development adds another layer of coordination. Each developing strawberry acts as a sink for sugars and water. When many fruits develop at once, competition increases. Some berries may remain smaller if sugar supply is limited. Thinning fruit or reducing runner growth can rebalance this demand. Runner growth reflects surplus energy. When leaves produce more sugars than are needed for fruiting and maintenance, runners extend outward. These horizontal stems form new plants, allowing the strawberry to reproduce vegetatively. This expansion occurs when conditions are favorable and energy supply exceeds immediate needs. If energy becomes limited, runner growth slows or stops. The plant prioritizes survival and fruit development over spreading. This shift can occur within days if conditions change, such as during drought or extreme heat. Root growth responds in parallel. When sugars are available, roots expand and form fine root hairs that improve water and nutrient uptake. When energy supply declines, root growth slows. This feedback affects the entire plant by limiting future absorption capacity. Temperature influences coordination as well. Warm temperatures increase metabolic activity, raising demand for sugars and water. Cool temperatures slow metabolism, allowing sugars to accumulate more easily. These effects change how quickly energy flows through the plant. During early growth, coordination favors leaf expansion. Leaves must develop enough surface area to support later demands. During flowering, coordination shifts toward reproductive structures. During fruiting, the plant directs most resources toward developing berries. After fruiting, coordination shifts again. Sugars are redirected into the crown and roots. This storage phase prepares the plant for runner production or dormancy, depending on season and temperature. Stress disrupts coordination. Drought limits water movement, slowing sugar transport. Disease damages tissues, interrupting flow. Excess heat increases respiration, consuming sugars faster than they are produced. These disruptions reduce efficiency and alter growth patterns. Recovery depends on restoring coordination. When water returns, leaves resume transpiration and sugar production. When temperature moderates, metabolic balance improves. The plant gradually re-establishes normal resource distribution. Because strawberries are small and fast-growing, these adjustments happen quickly. Changes in coordination can be observed within days. Leaves wilt or recover, fruit growth slows or resumes, and runners appear or retract. This responsiveness makes strawberries sensitive indicators of internal balance. The plant's appearance reflects how well coordination is functioning. Healthy plants show even leaf color, steady fruit development, and controlled runner growth. Stressed plants show uneven growth and reduced fruit quality. Management practices aim to support coordination rather than override it. Spacing improves light distribution. Irrigation stabilizes water movement. Nutrient management supports leaf efficiency. Each practice helps the plant maintain balanced flow between parts. Pruning old leaves or excess runners also affects coordination. Removing demand allows remaining tissues to function more efficiently. This redistribution improves fruit size and plant recovery. Coordination continues across seasons. Stored energy in the crown supports early growth before leaves are fully active. The quality of this stored energy influences how smoothly coordination resumes in spring. As plants age, coordination becomes more challenging. Crowns accumulate growth points, increasing internal competition. Energy distribution becomes less efficient, contributing to smaller fruit and weaker growth. Renewal restores simpler coordination by reducing crowding. Strawberries demonstrate that productivity depends not just on individual parts, but on how those parts work together. Roots, leaves, flowers, fruit, and runners form a network that responds continuously to conditions. When coordination is strong, strawberries produce evenly sized, flavorful fruit and recover quickly after harvest. When coordination weakens, stress becomes visible. Understanding this integrated system explains why strawberries respond so quickly to care and correction. Supporting coordination allows the plant to express its full potential within a short growing season. Strawberry plants change gradually as they age. These changes do not happen all at once, and they are not dramatic at first. Instead, aging alters how the plant distributes energy, how efficiently it produces fruit, and how it responds to stress across seasons. Observing these changes explains why strawberries benefit from renewal even though they are perennial plants. Young strawberry plants focus much of their energy on establishing structure. During the first growing season, leaves expand quickly, roots spread into surrounding soil, and the crown remains compact. Flowering may occur, but fruit production is often limited, while the plant builds capacity to support future growth. As plants mature, fruit production increases. The crown develops additional growth points, allowing more flowers to form. Leaves become larger and more numerous, increasing photosynthetic capacity. When conditions are favorable, this stage produces the largest and most consistent harvests. With further age, efficiency begins to decline. The crown continues adding growth points, but space and resources become limiting. Crowded growth points compete for sugars and water. As a result, individual leaves may become smaller, and flowers may receive less support during development. Fruit size often decreases in older plants. Even when water and nutrients are available, the plant struggles to distribute energy evenly across many competing growth points. This leads to berries that are smaller and less uniform, despite appearing healthy at first glance. Age also affects how strawberries respond to stress. Younger plants recover quickly from drought, heat, or disease because their crowns store energy efficiently and their tissues are less crowded. Older plants recover more slowly, as energy reserves are spread across more growth points, and tissues have accumulated damage from previous seasons. Root systems change over time as well. Although strawberry roots remain shallow, older plants often develop denser root masses near the crown. This crowding can limit the formation of new fine roots, reducing water and nutrient uptake efficiency. Compacted or depleted soil worsens this effect. Soil conditions therefore become more important as plants age. Loose, well-structured soil supports continued root renewal. In compacted soil, older plants experience greater stress because their limited root systems cannot adapt easily to changing moisture conditions. Disease pressure also increases with age. Over time, pathogens accumulate in soil and plant debris. Older leaves and crowns provide more entry points for infection. Even with good care, disease risk rises as plants remain in the same location year after year. These factors explain why commercial growers often treat strawberries as annual crops. By replacing plants each season, they avoid the gradual decline associated with aging crowns and accumulated disease. Each planting begins with vigorous young plants that have efficient energy distribution. Home gardeners often manage aging differently. Rather than replacing entire beds, they renew plantings by removing older crowns and allowing new plants formed from runners to take their place. This approach preserves continuity while restoring vigor. Runner-derived plants function like young plants. They begin with compact crowns and fewer growth points, allowing efficient energy use. When established in fresh soil or well-prepared beds, these new plants often produce larger berries and stronger growth than older crowns. Pruning also plays a role in managing aging. Removing old or damaged leaves reduces competition and improves airflow. This allows remaining leaves to function more effectively and reduces disease pressure. Pruning does not reverse aging, but it slows its effects. Water and nutrient management must adapt as plants age. Older plants may require more careful watering to prevent stress, especially during fruiting. Balanced nutrition supports remaining productive tissues without encouraging excessive foliage that worsens crowding. Age influences how strawberries enter dormancy. Younger plants often store energy more efficiently in the crown, supporting strong spring growth. Older plants may enter dormancy with lower reserves, leading to delayed or weaker regrowth the following season. Winter survival reflects these differences. Plants with compact, healthy crowns tolerate freezing conditions better than those with crowded or damaged crowns. Mulch helps protect all plants, but younger crowns generally recover more smoothly in spring. As plants age, yield often declines gradually rather than abruptly. The plant may continue producing fruit, but the berries become smaller and fewer. This slow decline can go unnoticed until productivity drops significantly. Understanding these age-related changes helps explain why strawberries feel productive but temporary. They are not built for decades of unchanged growth. Instead, their success depends on cycles of renewal that reset structure and energy distribution. This pattern reflects the strawberry's broader strategy. The plant invests in rapid reproduction and quick turnover, rather than long-term stability. Aging marks the point where efficiency gives way to complexity, and renewal becomes necessary. Gardeners who recognize these signs can intervene at the right time. Renewing beds before decline becomes severe maintains consistent harvests and healthier plants. Waiting too long allows stress and disease to accumulate. Aging does not represent failure. It is part of the plant's natural cycle. Strawberries produce abundantly when young, gradually slow as structure becomes crowded, and respond positively when renewal restores balance. By observing how strawberry plants change over time, it becomes easier to manage them effectively. Age influences size, flavor, resilience, and recovery. Matching care to the plant stage supports better outcomes across seasons. These gradual changes explain why strawberries reward attention and renewal. Their productivity depends not on permanence, but on the ability to refresh growth and restore efficient coordination between roots, leaves, and fruit. Strawberries also reflect how human choices shape plant behavior over time. From planting and spacing to harvesting and renewal, management decisions influence how strawberries grow, how long they remain productive, and how they respond to stress. These effects accumulate gradually rather than appearing all at once. Planting location sets the foundation. Strawberries placed in full sun with good drainage begin growth with fewer constraints. Adequate sunlight supports sugar production in the leaves, while drainage prevents oxygen loss around roots close to the soil surface. When either factor is limited, the plant compensates, often by reducing fruit size or slowing growth. Spacing is one of the most influential decisions. Closely spaced plants shade one another and restrict airflow. This reduces photosynthetic efficiency and increases humidity around leaves and fruit. Over time, dense spacing leads to smaller berries, higher disease pressure, and faster decline. Wider spacing supports even growth and easier recovery between harvests. Planting depth also matters. The crown must sit at the soil surface. If planted too deeply, moisture collects around the crown and increases the risk of rot. If planted too shallow, the crown dries out or freezes. Correct placement allows water to drain while protecting the growing point. Water management shapes growth patterns. Regular, moderate watering supports steady cell expansion in fruit and consistent leaf activity. Irregular watering forces the plant to adjust repeatedly, interrupting sugar transport and reducing flavor. Overwatering increases fruit size without improving sweetness, while drought limits both size and yield. Mulching modifies these effects. Mulch reduces evaporation and stabilizes soil moisture, decreasing the frequency of stress. It also buffers temperature changes near the soil surface, protecting roots close to the soil surface. These physical effects support more predictable growth and fruit quality. Nutrient management influences how energy is allocated. Balanced nutrients support both leaves and fruit. Excess nitrogen encourages leaf growth, increasing shading and disease risk. Insufficient nutrients limit leaf area and reduce sugar production. Over time, imbalance leads to inconsistent harvests and weaker plants. Pruning and thinning affect how energy is distributed. Removing excess runners reduces competition and redirects sugars toward fruit and storage. Removing old or damaged leaves improves airflow and light penetration. These adjustments support efficient use of energy without altering the plant's natural growth pattern. Harvest timing interacts with plant recovery. Frequent harvesting during peak ripeness reduces the weight carried by fruiting stems and limits damage to tissues. Allowing overripe fruit to remain on the plant increases stress and attracts pests. Timely harvest supports continued flowering and better recovery. Human activity around strawberry beds affects soil structure. Repeated foot traffic compacts soil, reducing air spaces and water infiltration. Because strawberry roots are shallow, compaction quickly limits root function. Using designated paths and raised beds helps preserve soil health. Crop rotation influences long-term performance. Planting strawberries in the same location repeatedly allows disease organisms to accumulate. Rotating planting sites or renewing soil reduces pathogen buildup and supports healthier growth over successive seasons. In commercial settings, management choices are designed for consistency. Annual planting resets structure and disease pressure. Uniform spacing and irrigation simplify care. These systems trade long-term persistence for predictable yield and quality. Home gardens often prioritize continuity. Gardeners manage runners to renew beds gradually rather than replacing entire plantings. This approach requires attention to spacing, soil condition, and disease control, but allows strawberries to persist for several seasons. Protection from wildlife also shapes outcomes. Netting prevents birds from removing fruit, allowing berries to remain on the plant until peak ripeness. This supports better flavor and reduces wasted energy. Pest pressure reflects management quality. Healthy plants with good airflow and balanced nutrition resist pests more effectively. Stressed plants attract insects and disease, increasing the need for intervention. Seasonal adjustments matter. Management practices that work during cool spring conditions may require modification during hot summer periods. Increasing irrigation, improving airflow, or adding shade during heat waves helps keep plants within their tolerance range. Management also influences how strawberries respond to weather variability. Plants grown in stable conditions recover more quickly after stress. Poorly managed plants accumulate damage that reduces resilience. Over time, the effects of management decisions become visible in plant structure. Well-managed plants show balanced crowns, steady runner production, and consistent fruit size. Poorly managed plants show crowded crowns, irregular growth, and declining yields. These patterns explain why strawberries are responsive to care. They react quickly to both improvement and neglect. Small adjustments can produce noticeable changes within a single season. Strawberries reward attention rather than force. Their roots close to the soil surface and rapid growth mean they cannot buffer long periods of stress. Instead, they rely on consistent conditions maintained through management. Understanding how human decisions shape strawberry growth highlights the plant's sensitivity. Strawberries do not simply grow and fruit regardless of conditions. They respond continuously to how they are planted, spaced, watered, and harvested. This responsiveness makes strawberries both challenging and satisfying to grow. When care aligns with the plant's needs, growth becomes predictable and fruit quality improves. When care is inconsistent, decline appears quickly. Management does not override the plant's biology. It works with it. Each decision influences how strawberries allocate energy between growth, fruiting, spreading, and recovery. Over multiple seasons, these decisions shape whether strawberries remain productive or require renewal. The plant reflects the care it receives, showing the outcomes clearly in its fruit and structure. Strawberries also reveal how recovery works after disruption. Because their tissues are soft and their roots are shallow, strawberries adjust rapidly to stress, but they also recover quickly when conditions improve. Understanding this cycle of stress and recovery explains why timely adjustments can restore productivity within a single season. Short-term stress often begins with water imbalance. During drought, water movement through the plant slows. Leaves reduce transpiration to conserve moisture. This also reduces the pull of nutrients from the soil. Fruit expansion slows as cells lose turgor pressure. These changes protect the plant, but reduce growth. When water becomes available again, recovery begins immediately. Roots absorb moisture, transpiration resumes, and nutrient flow increases. Leaves regain firmness, and fruit expansion can continue if the stress was brief. The speed of this recovery reflects the strawberry's shallow root system and fast metabolism. Heat stress follows a similar pattern. High temperatures increase respiration, consuming sugars faster than they are produced. Growth slows as the plant diverts energy toward basic maintenance. When temperatures moderate, respiration decreases, allowing sugars to accumulate again. Fruit quality stabilizes if the plant has not been stressed for too long. Disease pressure also interrupts growth. Fungal infections damage leaves and fruit, reducing photosynthetic area and increasing energy loss. Removing infected tissue improves recovery by eliminating drains on energy and restoring airflow. Healthy tissue resumes function once conditions improve. Recovery depends on reserves stored in the crown. During stress, these reserves support survival. After stress, they provide energy for rebuilding leaves and roots. Plants with strong reserves recover more completely than those already depleted by heavy fruiting or repeated stress. The timing of stress matters. Early season stress limits leaf development and flower formation, reducing yield potential. Mid-season stress affects fruit size and flavor. Late season stress reduces storage, weakening the plant's preparation for dormancy and the following spring. Because strawberries develop quickly, stress effects appear within days rather than weeks. Leaves wilt, fruit growth slows, and runner production pauses. This rapid feedback allows growers to correct problems before permanent damage occurs. Soil condition influences recovery speed. Loose, well-aerated soil allows roots to resume function quickly after stress. Compacted soil delays recovery by restricting oxygen and water movement. Improving soil structure shortens recovery time and supports more stable growth. Mulching aids recovery by moderating soil moisture and temperature. After heat or drought, mulch reduces evaporation and protects roots from sudden temperature changes. This stabilization allows roots to function more efficiently as conditions improve. Nutrient availability also affects recovery. Plants with balanced nutrition rebuild tissues more effectively. Deficiencies limit regrowth, while excess nutrients, particularly nitrogen, can produce weak, overly soft growth that is vulnerable to further stress. Runner removal supports recovery after heavy fruiting. Removing runners reduces energy demand, allowing sugars to be redirected toward leaf repair and crown storage. This adjustment helps the plant regain balance rather than continuing to divide resources. Pruning damaged leaves has a similar effect. Removing old or diseased foliage reduces respiratory load and improves light penetration. Remaining leaves operate more efficiently, accelerating recovery. Strawberries also recover unevenly across the plant. Leaves exposed to full sun regain function faster than shaded leaves. Areas with better soil contact support quicker root recovery. This uneven regrowth can temporarily alter plant shape and fruit distribution. Repeated stress without recovery leads to cumulative damage. Each episode reduces reserves and tissue integrity. Over time, plants become less responsive to improvement and more prone to disease. Recognizing stress early prevents this progression. Weather variability tests recovery limits. A single heat wave followed by mild conditions may have little lasting effect. Repeated extremes without relief exhaust reserves. Strawberries thrive where stress is followed by recovery rather than constant pressure. Management decisions shape these outcomes. Timely irrigation, improved airflow, soil protection, and nutrient balance shorten recovery periods. Delayed intervention allows damage to accumulate, increasing the time needed for restoration. Strawberries demonstrate resilience through flexibility. They reduce growth quickly when conditions worsen and resume growth quickly when conditions improve. This flexibility allows them to produce abundantly when managed well, despite their delicate structure. Recovery also influences fruit quality directly. Berries developing during recovery often show improved flavor and firmness compared to those formed under stress. This difference reflects restored sugar transport and balanced water movement. Observing recovery patterns helps diagnose underlying issues. Slow recovery may indicate compacted soil, depleted nutrients, or crown damage. Rapid recovery suggests that stress was temporary and reserves remain sufficient. Seasonal recovery prepares the plant for dormancy. After fruiting and stress episodes, leaves rebuild reserves in the crown. Effective recovery ensures that dormancy begins with adequate stored energy, supporting winter survival and spring growth. Plants that fail to recover adequately enter dormancy weakened. These plants produce fewer leaves and flowers the following spring. The effects of poor recovery therefore extend beyond the current season. Understanding recovery emphasizes why strawberries respond well to attentive care. Small corrections applied promptly restore growth without needing drastic measures. The plant's biology supports quick adjustment when conditions are stabilized. Strawberries are not resistant to stress, but they are responsive to relief. Their productivity depends on allowing periods of recovery between demands. Continuous pressure without relief leads to decline, while balanced cycles sustain performance. Each recovery episode strengthens understanding of the plant's needs. Observing how strawberries rebound from stress guides future management, improving outcomes over time. This cycle of stress and recovery defines strawberries as both fragile and resilient. Their success lies not in avoiding stress entirely, but in ensuring that recovery always follows. Strawberry plants settle into familiar patterns when they remain in the same place over time. As seasons repeat, the plant's responses become more efficient. Growth, flowering, fruiting, and recovery follow pathways shaped by repeated exposure to the same soil, climate, and care. This familiarity reduces the cost of adjustment and supports steadier performance. Roots play a key role in this process. Although strawberry roots remain shallow, they explore the surrounding soil thoroughly over multiple seasons. Fine roots renew repeatedly in areas where moisture and nutrients are most reliable. Water uptake becomes predictable, allowing the plant to match growth closely to what the soil can supply. Soil structure influences how quickly this familiarity develops. Loose, well-aerated soil allows roots to expand and renew easily. In such conditions, roots do not need to search constantly for water. Instead, they occupy stable zones, reducing stress during short dry periods and improving recovery after rainfall. The crown also reflects repeated seasons in one place. Growth points accumulate in patterns shaped by past conditions. Areas that consistently supported healthy leaves and fruit remain active. Areas exposed to repeated stress may become less productive or cease growth entirely. Over time, the crown becomes shaped by what has worked and what has not. Leaf development follows similar patterns. Leaves that emerge in positions with good light exposure tend to grow larger and remain productive longer. Shaded positions produce weaker leaves that contribute less to sugar production. As seasons pass, the plant favors growth in the most effective positions. Flowering becomes more regular when conditions remain stable. Plants that experience predictable temperatures and moisture levels initiate flowers within a narrower window. Pollination occurs more evenly, and fruit shape becomes more consistent. This regularity reflects the plant's ability to anticipate conditions based on prior seasons. Energy movement also becomes more efficient. Sugars produced in the leaves move along established pathways into fruit, runners, or storage. Because the plant no longer needs to redirect growth constantly, less energy is lost to adjustment. More energy supports fruit quality and recovery. Runner production reflects this settled state. In familiar environments, runners emerge when surplus energy is available and slow when conditions tighten. The timing of runner growth becomes predictable, allowing growers to manage spacing and renewal more easily. Water use becomes more balanced as well. Plants accustomed to local rainfall and irrigation patterns regulate transpiration more effectively. Leaves open and close stomata in response to familiar conditions, reducing water loss during stress and resuming activity quickly when moisture returns. Temperature patterns shape this familiarity. In locations with consistent seasonal progression, strawberries adjust growth timing accordingly. Leaves emerge, flowers form, and fruit develops in sync with expected conditions. Sudden extremes still cause disruption, but moderate variation is absorbed more easily. This does not make strawberries immune to stress. Severe drought, extreme heat, or disease can still interrupt growth. However, plants that have settled into a stable environment recover more quickly because their internal systems are already aligned with local conditions. Human management interacts with this familiarity. Consistent practices reinforce predictable responses. Regular spacing, stable watering routines, and steady soil care allow the plant to refine its growth patterns. Sudden changes in management force the plant to reallocate energy, temporarily reducing efficiency. The visible form of the plant reflects this settled state. Crowns appear balanced rather than crowded. Leaves show consistent size and color. Fruit develops evenly across the plant. These features indicate that the plant is operating within conditions it can manage. This stability supports sustained productivity. Plants that remain in familiar, supportive environments avoid extreme swings between heavy fruiting and exhaustion. Instead, they produce moderate but consistent yields across seasons. As plants age, familiarity becomes more important. Older crowns rely on efficient energy distribution rather than rapid growth. When conditions remain predictable, aging plants maintain function longer. When conditions fluctuate widely, aging accelerates decline. The surrounding ecosystem responds as well. Pollinators encounter flowers at expected times. Soil organisms adapt to consistent root activity and organic matter input. These interactions reinforce stability at a small scale. Across seasons, this familiarity reduces the cost of growth. The plant spends less energy responding to surprise and more energy producing fruit and maintaining tissues. This efficiency supports both quality and resilience. Strawberries illustrate how repetition shapes biological systems. Repeated exposure to the same conditions allows plants to refine their responses. Growth becomes less reactive and more measured. This refinement explains why strawberries often perform best after their first full season in a location. Initial establishment requires adjustment. Once roots, crown, and leaves have experienced a full cycle, subsequent growth aligns more closely with local conditions. When familiarity is disrupted, efficiency drops. Transplanting, major soil disturbance, or abrupt climate changes force the plant to rebuild internal patterns. During this adjustment period, fruit quality and yield often decline temporarily. Given time, new patterns form. Roots explore new soil. Crowns adjust growth points. Leaves adapt to light and temperature. Efficiency gradually returns as the plant relearns its environment. This process highlights the value of stability in strawberry cultivation. While flexibility allows recovery, stability allows refinement. The best outcomes occur when plants are allowed to remain in conditions that suit them. Understanding familiarity helps explain why strawberries respond so clearly to place. Two plants of the same variety can behave differently in different gardens. Each develops familiarity with its own soil, light, and water patterns. Over time, the plant's behavior reflects this relationship. Growth, fruiting, and recovery settle into a rhythm shaped by experience rather than constant adjustment. This rhythm supports calm, steady productivity. The plant no longer rushes or hesitates. It grows in step with its environment, responding when necessary, but conserving energy whenever possible. Strawberries are often described as fast-growing, but their long-term success depends on this quieter process of settling in. Once familiarity is established, the plant becomes less fragile and more reliable. Each season reinforces this pattern. Leaves grow where light is strongest. Roots function where soil is most supportive. Fruit forms where energy flow is steady. The plant's structure becomes a record of what has worked. Through familiarity, strawberries balance responsiveness with efficiency. They remain sensitive to change, but they are not constantly strained by it. This balance allows them to produce abundantly without exhausting their limited structure. Strawberries can be understood more clearly when their many traits are viewed together rather than separately. Growth habit, flowering, fruiting, spreading, aging, and recovery are not independent processes. They operate as a linked sequence shaped by temperature, water, light, and the movement of energy through a small plant with limited reserves. The plant structure sets the framework. A shallow root system limits access to deep moisture, but allows rapid response to rainfall and irrigation. A compact crown concentrates growth points, making coordination efficient, but also sensitive to crowding. Short stems support fruit close to the soil surface, reducing transport distance, but increasing exposure to moisture and temperature changes. These physical traits explain why strawberries grow quickly. Resources move short distances from roots to leaves to fruit. When conditions are favorable, this compact system supports rapid leaf expansion, fast flowering, and quick fruit development. When conditions worsen, the same system slows just as quickly. Flowering links directly to this structure. Flowers form at the crown after sufficient leaf growth has developed. Pollination then determines how evenly fruit tissue expands. Each fertilized achene contributes to the swelling of the stem beneath it. The final shape of the berry reflects how evenly signals were distributed across the flower. Fruit development follows immediately. Water and sugars move into soft tissue, increasing size and sweetness. Because the fruit is supported by short stems and thin skin, expansion is efficient but fragile. Small changes in water supply or temperature alter texture and flavor within days. Spreading through runners fits into this pattern. When energy supply exceeds immediate fruit demand, horizontal stems extend outward to form new plants. This allows strawberries to reproduce vegetatively when conditions allow. When energy is limited, runner growth slows, conserving resources for survival. Recovery and storage depend on the same pathways. After fruiting or stress, sugars move back into the crown. This storage prepares the plant for dormancy or renewed growth. Because storage space is limited, incomplete recovery quickly affects future performance. Aging emerges from repeated cycles of this coordination. Over time, crowns accumulate growth points, increasing internal competition. Efficiency declines as energy must be divided among more leaves, flowers, and runners. Without renewal, fruit size decreases and recovery slows. Dormancy ties the cycle together. As temperatures drop, growth stops, and tissues harden. The crown protects stored energy and growth points through winter. Survival depends on how much energy was stored and how well the crown is insulated from temperature extremes. Spring growth reveals the outcome. Strong reserves support rapid leaf emergence and early flowering. Weak reserves delay growth and reduce fruit potential. This connection links one season directly to the next. Environmental conditions influence every stage. Temperature affects respiration and sugar balance. Water availability controls cell expansion and nutrient transport. Light exposure determines sugar production. Because strawberries adjust rapidly, these influences are visible within a single harvest. Management practices work by stabilizing these influences. Mulching moderates soil moisture and temperature. Spacing improves light and airflow. Irrigation smooths water supply. Renewal resets structure and energy distribution. Each practice addresses a specific vulnerability created by the plant's compact design. Disease and pests exploit the same vulnerabilities. Moist surfaces and dense growth provide entry points for pathogens. Stress weakens tissues, reducing resistance. Healthy plants with balanced growth resist infection more effectively because energy supports repair and defense. Harvest timing also fits into this integrated view. Fruit picked at peak ripeness reflects successful coordination between growth, pollination, and resource movement. Fruit picked too early or too late reflects disruption in timing or handling. The sensory qualities of strawberries emerge from this coordination. Sweetness reflects sugar transport. Aroma reflects volatile compounds formed near peak ripeness. Texture reflects water balance and cell structure. Each quality depends on multiple processes aligning briefly. Because this alignment is brief, strawberries feel fleeting. Their appeal lies in a short window when structure, chemistry, and environment coincide. This fleeting quality is not accidental. It follows from the plant's rapid growth strategy. Across regions, the same processes play out differently. Cooler climates slow development, allowing flavors to deepen. Warmer climates accelerate growth, reducing flavor intensity. Soil and water conditions further modify outcomes. Each region produces strawberries shaped by local constraints. Across seasons, the same plant may behave differently. A cool, stable year produces firm, flavorful fruit. A hot, variable year produces softer, milder berries. These differences reflect how closely conditions stayed within the plant's narrow tolerances. Viewed together, strawberries illustrate how productivity can be achieved with minimal structure. The plant invests in speed rather than permanence. It grows, fruits, spreads, and renews quickly, accepting fragility as the cost of abundance. This strategy explains why strawberries reward attention. Small corrections restore balance. Small mistakes have visible effects. The plant does not buffer extremes, but it responds clearly to care. Understanding strawberries as an integrated system clarifies why no single factor determines success. Soil alone is not enough. Water alone is not enough. Temperature, light, timing, and management must align briefly for the plant to express its full potential. When they do, strawberries produce fruit that reflects weeks of coordinated growth compressed into a short harvest. When they do not, the plant adjusts, slows, or declines. This integration also explains why strawberries feel immediate. The plant's short cycles allow rapid feedback. Changes in care produce visible results quickly, reinforcing the link between action and outcome. Across their life cycle, strawberries repeat this pattern. Growth begins, fruit forms, energy shifts, recovery follows, and dormancy protects what remains. Each cycle is brief, but together they form continuity. By viewing strawberries through this connected lens, the plant's behavior becomes predictable. Each trait supports the others. Each limitation shapes outcomes. Productivity emerges not from excess, but from alignment within narrow boundaries. This perspective prepares the ground for understanding how strawberries fit into larger systems, including ecosystems, agriculture, and seasonal cycles. The plant's small scale and fast rhythm make these connections visible. In the end, strawberries show how much can be achieved with very little structure when conditions are briefly right. Their success depends on timing, coordination, and balance rather than strength or permanence. Strawberry plants show a clear shift in behavior as familiarity builds across repeated seasons. When a planting remains undisturbed and conditions are consistent, the plant's responses become less reactive and more efficient. Growth, flowering, fruiting, and recovery follow patterns shaped by what has worked before, reducing the cost of adjustment. Roots are central to this settling process. Although strawberry roots remain shallow, they repeatedly renew in the same soil zones where moisture and nutrients are reliable. Over time, fine roots concentrate in these zones, improving uptake efficiency. When water becomes temporarily limited, these established pathways allow the plant to draw moisture more predictably than newly planted crowns. The crown reflects familiarity as well. Growth points that consistently receive sufficient energy remain active, while less efficient points contribute less. This natural selection within the crown gradually simplifies energy distribution. Instead of attempting to support every possible growth point equally, the plant favors those that have proven productive under local conditions. Leaf placement follows the same logic. Leaves emerging in positions with consistent light grow larger and remain active longer. Shaded positions contribute less to sugar production and may drop earlier in the season. Over time, the plant's canopy becomes shaped by light patterns that repeat each year. Flowering becomes more even as familiarity increases. Plants accustomed to local temperature and moisture patterns initiate flowers within a narrower window. Pollination occurs under more predictable conditions, and fruit shape becomes more uniform. This regularity reflects the plant's ability to anticipate seasonal cues based on past cycles. So energy movement through the plant becomes more streamlined. Sugars produced in the leaves move along established routes into fruit, runners, or storage. Because fewer adjustments are needed, less energy is lost to redirection. More energy supports fruit quality and recovery. Runner production also becomes more predictable. In familiar environments, runners emerge when surplus energy is available and slow when conditions tighten. The timing of runner growth stabilizes, making spacing and renewal easier to manage. Water use reflects this efficiency. Plants acclimated to local rainfall and irrigation patterns regulate transpiration more effectively. Leaves open and close stomata in response to familiar conditions, reducing water loss during brief stress and resuming activity quickly when moisture returns. Temperature patterns reinforce these responses. In locations with consistent seasonal progression, strawberries align growth timing accordingly. Leaves emerge, flowers form, and fruit develops in step with expected conditions. Sudden extremes still disrupt growth, but moderate variation is absorbed with less strain. This does not remove vulnerability. Severe drought, extreme heat, or disease can still interrupt growth. However, plants that have settled into a stable environment recover more quickly because internal systems are already aligned with local conditions. Human management interacts with this familiarity. Consistent practices reinforce predictable responses. Stable spacing, regular watering routines, and steady soil care allow the plant to refine its growth patterns. Abrupt changes in management force reallocation of energy, temporarily reducing efficiency. The visible form of the plant reflects this settled state. Crowns appear balanced rather than crowded. Leaves show consistent size and color. Fruit develops evenly across the plant. These signs indicate that the plant is operating within conditions it can manage. This stability supports sustained productivity. Plants that remain in familiar, supportive environments avoid extreme swings between heavy fruiting and exhaustion. Instead, they produce moderate but reliable yields across seasons. As plants age, familiarity becomes more important. Older crowns rely on efficient energy distribution rather than rapid growth. When conditions remain predictable, aging plants maintain function longer. When conditions fluctuate widely, decline accelerates. The surrounding ecosystem responds to this stability. Pollinators encounter flowers at expected times. Soil organisms adapt to consistent root activity and organic matter input. These interactions reinforce stability at a small scale. Across seasons, familiarity reduces the cost of growth. The plant spends less energy responding to surprise and more energy producing fruit and maintaining tissues. This efficiency supports both quality and resilience. Strawberries illustrate how repetition shapes biological systems. Repeated exposure to the same conditions allows plants to refine their responses. Growth becomes less reactive and more measured. This refinement explains why strawberries often perform best after their first full season in a location. Initial establishment requires adjustment. Once roots, crown, and leaves have experienced a complete cycle, subsequent growth aligns more closely with local conditions. When familiarity is disrupted, efficiency drops. Transplanting, major soil disturbance, or abrupt climate changes force the plant to rebuild internal patterns. During this adjustment period, fruit quality and yield often decline temporarily. Given time, new patterns form. Roots explore new soil. Crowns adjust growth points. Leaves adapt to light and temperature. Efficiency gradually returns as the plant relearns its environment. This process highlights the value of stability in strawberry cultivation. Flexibility allows recovery, but stability allows refinement. The best outcomes occur when plants remain in conditions that suit them. Understanding familiarity helps explain why strawberries respond so clearly to place. Two plants of the same variety can behave differently in different gardens. Each develops familiarity with its own soil, light, and water patterns. Over time, the plant's behavior reflects this relationship. Growth, fruiting, and recovery settle into a rhythm shaped by experience rather than constant adjustment. This rhythm supports calm, steady productivity. The plant no longer rushes or hesitates. It grows in step with its environment, responding when necessary, but conserving energy whenever possible. Strawberries are often described as fast-growing, but their long-term success depends on this quieter process of settling in. Once familiarity is established, the plant becomes less fragile and more reliable. Each season reinforces this pattern. Leaves grow where light is strongest. Roots function where soil is most supportive. Fruit forms where energy flow is steady. The plant's structure becomes a record of what has worked. Through familiarity, strawberries balance responsiveness with efficiency. They remain sensitive to change, but they are not constantly strained by it. This balance allows them to produce abundantly without exhausting their limited structure. Strawberry plants reach a stage where their patterns of growth, response, and recovery are well established. By this point, the plant's structure and behavior reflect many cycles of interaction with temperature, water, light, and care, the processes that guide flowering, fruiting, spreading, and dormancy are no longer shifting rapidly. Instead, they operate along familiar pathways shaped by repeated seasons. At full maturity, the crown carries the record of these cycles. Growth points that have proven efficient remain active, while less productive points contribute less. This internal organization reduces competition and allows energy to move more smoothly through the plant. Leaves support fruit without exhausting reserves, and recovery follows fruiting with fewer interruptions. Roots mirror this stability. Fine roots renew in soil zones that consistently provide moisture and nutrients. Because these pathways are established, water uptake becomes more predictable. Short periods of stress are absorbed more easily, and recovery begins quickly when conditions improve. Seasonal timing continues to follow the same framework. Spring growth draws on stored energy. Flowering and fruiting occur when temperatures and moisture align. After harvest, energy shifts back into the crown. Dormancy protects what remains. Each stage follows the last with little need for adjustment when conditions remain within range. Fruit production at this stage depends on balance rather than intensity. Strawberries that operate within their limits produce consistent harvests rather than extreme peaks followed by decline. Berries develop evenly, and plants recover without depleting reserves. Environmental conditions still shape outcomes. Cooler seasons support firmer fruit and deeper flavor. Warmer seasons accelerate development and soften texture. Rainfall affects size and sweetness. These influences remain visible in each harvest, even when overall patterns are stable. Management continues to matter. Consistent spacing, steady water supply, balanced nutrients, and renewal of aging plants maintain alignment between growth and structure. Abrupt changes in care force the plant to reallocate energy, temporarily reducing efficiency. As plants age further, growth slows naturally. Leaves remain productive, but expansion becomes more measured. Fruit continues to form, but yields stabilize rather than increase. This shift reflects efficiency rather than decline. The plant focuses on maintaining function rather than expanding capacity. The surrounding environment responds to this stability. Pollinators encounter flowers at predictable times. Soil organisms adapt to consistent root activity and organic input. These interactions reinforce the plant's rhythm and reduce variability at a small scale. Across years, the strawberry plant becomes a reliable presence rather than a reactive one. Growth proceeds without urgency. Recovery follows stress without delay. Fruit reflects the conditions of the season without exaggerated extremes. This steadiness is not permanent. Severe stress, disease, or disruption can still interrupt the cycle. However, plants that have settled into supportive conditions recover more readily because their internal coordination is already aligned with their environment. Over time, the strawberry's life cycle reveals a consistent pattern. Rapid growth leads to fruit. Fruit leads to recovery. Recovery supports dormancy. Dormancy prepares the plant for the next season. Each repetition strengthens familiarity and reduces strain. This pattern explains why strawberries feel both fleeting and dependable. Individual fruits appear and disappear quickly, but the plant itself persists through repetition. Productivity comes from alignment rather than force. As the season draws toward its end, leaves remain active long enough to return energy to the crown. Sugars move inward, and tissues prepare for rest. Flowering slows, runner production declines, and growth becomes quieter. In the final weeks, visible change slows. Fruit production tapers. Leaves gradually lose intensity. The plant settles back toward dormancy, holding what it has gathered. This transition does not mark an ending so much as a pause. The crown remains intact, storing energy and protecting growth points. The structure that supported fruit now supports rest. As winter approaches, the strawberry plant becomes still at the surface. Beneath that stillness, the work of preservation continues. Energy remains stored, ready to move again when conditions return. When spring arrives, the same sequence will begin again. Leaves will emerge from the crown. Flowers will form. Fruit will develop. The cycle will repeat along the same pathways shaped by previous seasons. The strawberry plant does not change its strategy. It relies on timing, balance, and responsiveness rather than strength or permanence. Its success comes from fitting precisely within narrow conditions rather than resisting them. This rhythm defines strawberries more than any single trait. Softness, sweetness, fragrance, and fragility all arise from the same compact system, responding quickly to its environment. Thank you for listening to the Sleepy Mind channel. I hope you have enjoyed spending time learning about strawberries.